Hello, everyone. Today I wanted to talk about something that probably affects most of us, especially if we have a job. What I see a lot of today are people concerned about their paychecks because they're not making it. They're not able to afford basic necessities with what they're earning. And the jobs that pay higher are becoming harder and harder to get, or AI is taking over. I've been out of corporate America for a couple of years, or going on a couple of years anyway. And, I also had to interview after I left corporate America, and I saw what was out there. And that was almost 2 years ago, and it was slim pickings, especially since I'm in my 50s. I wouldn't say it was necessarily harder to get an interview because I got interviews, but it was harder to get hired. When you're working for a company and say you work there for a really long time, you might make top pay grade. Maybe they cap out at, say, $30 an hour and you're already there. You've been there for like 30 years. You're close to retirement age. So to go to a different job, if you got laid off, if you quit, if you got fired, for any reason you were replaced by AI, to go to a different job, you might have a hard time finding a job paying $31 an hour in your comfort zone for your budget and your lifestyle. And what ends up happening, in my experience of working in like a corporate setting, was even when you got to what you thought was top of your game, it ended up not what you expected once you got there. I knew somebody who worked in a factory. It was like a potato chip factory or something like that. And she made $25 an hour. Now, it wasn't necessarily a hard job. She had to stand on her feet for long hours. She had a progressive disease, so she was often in pain, but she was happy to be making $25 an hour. Within a certain amount of time, everybody loved this lady. She was a wonderful person, and she started making $27 an hour after a raise. $27 an hour is roughly about $56,000 a year. And then finally, she made supervisor. Her responsibilities grew, and she had to learn the ins and outs of certain things, such as profit and losses, budgets, software for the company, all kinds of other financial aspects, working with other employees and supervising them in a supervisory role. She also had to do monthly, maybe even weekly or daily reports. She also was the key holder to the building. She had to make sure everybody got out safe at night, locked up after them. So she was there earlier and left later. And then suddenly they hired somebody above her in the corporate structure. And a lot of times companies, especially if they're bigger than just a small family company, they'll have a different location in another state where they operate their corporate headquarters. And that was the case for this lady. The top people in the company hired a new person, and that person's role was to oversee every single employee everywhere. And now my friend, who had worked at this company for years and years and years and was promoted to supervisor, she now has a new boss when there were already a bunch of managers above her anyway. So they hired this person above my friend who never did a job like this a day in her life. She had no experience doing a job like this a day in her life. She actually had no experience with people, like managing people, supervising people. My friend found out, because, people talk, right? She found out that this new person, this new executive with no experience, was making literally like $200,000 a year. And they gave her a company car, and it was a brand new car. And my friend was like, wow, that's, really interesting, because they could have promoted within. There's plenty of people here that have been here for years and years and years and know this company inside out, but they didn't. They went outside of the company and they brought this person in who has no experience, no knowledge of what any of us do. And my friend felt very torn about it. Like, I want to leave the company now. I feel totally underappreciated, as do all my coworkers and everything. Plus, the employees that she supervised were also feeling like this too, because they're like, usually this company would promote from within, but now they've gone and done this, like a slap in the face to all the employees. Like, you're working at a job for 30 years. The corporation or your managers or people above you totally ignore you for a promotion that you're well qualified for. But then the new hire comes to you and asks how to do their job that they're getting paid $200,000 for, when you're still getting paid like 50 and you've been there 30 years. But then it got worse for my friend, because this new person hired a friend of hers. She brought in a friend of hers that was out of work, that was not a former employee of this type of company that did not know anything about running a factory or running, machines. He is now her direct supervisor, not somebody that's sitting up in corporate level, but actually her direct supervisor. So now she has a boss when she was the boss. And he was overseeing sort of like a district manager, regional manager, something like that, where he would oversee different supervisors, even though this was never done before. Like, a supervisor was the position to seek out, and now she's in it, and now they hire somebody above her. And it was really deflating. But my friend was a very positive person. She kept a positive outlook. She was thankful for her job at all. And she was like, you know what? Maybe I can learn from this person. And maybe, just maybe, it will take some of the pressure off of me, because he'll be able to do other things that we need done that she didn't have time for. But that's not what happened. He made a bunch of empty promises and then came in and gave her a bunch of new tasks that were above and beyond her job description, above and beyond her job duties that she needs to do, not just monthly, weekly, but daily. She had to add all these things into her daily regimen because this guy was a micromanager. So basically what she said was the vendors used to call her to set up appointments. And what they would do is they would meet with her about new machines, productivity, and demonstrations, and also employee training, because those were the departments that she oversaw within her supervisory capacity. But now, since this other new hire hired this guy, he comes in and he tells all the vendors, oh no, don't call my friend, but call him directly. And in doing that, he takes charge and control of everything related to all the above I just said about what the vendors worked with my friend. He tells all the vendors, even though they had been doing the same way for years and years and years, not to call the supervisors, but to call him directly. And that was really a defining moment for my friend, because she was like, this doesn't make any sense to me. How can I do my job effectively if this know-it-all guy comes in who has no experience, doesn't know anything, and it seems like an opportunist? So my friend said she was never told about new product demonstrations, which she found out about when the vendors showed up. They didn't mind her schedule. She may have had a doctor's appointment. She may have had a business meeting. She may have had a meeting with an employee. It didn't matter. They showed up, product in hand, ready to do a demo. And she knew nothing about it because this guy above her is now dictating the orders to the vendors. Even though the vendors and my friend and all other supervisors here had a working relationship with vendors and everything ran smoothly. So it just seemed like a thorn in their side to have this guy now calling the shots about nothing he knows nothing about and doesn't even respect their schedules. This also limited my friend's advancing productivity knowledge, because now the roles are excluded from her job description because this new manager above her is taking charge of it all. Therefore, she didn't get any newsletters, magazines, articles, emails, nothing about new machinery available, the up and coming anything, the rollouts every year. She knows nothing now. She's in the dark. The next thing that happened was they took her ability away to train employees. So now this new guy, it's his job. He took over that role and he knew nothing about the job. So it was very difficult for the employees to relate to him at all because he didn't know anything about them. Clearly, he knew nothing about this role or any of the experience you need coming into a role like this. He knew nothing about the machines. He knew nothing about how the potato chips are packaged, processed, whatever. And to make it worse, now my friend had no say in what her employees even learned, because she wasn't allowed to say, hey, I saw this nice seminar coming up, or I saw this new thing coming up, or whatever, right? And now he's like, no, you're not doing that. I'm in charge. This is my way. So this is what we're doing. And he really took away her freedom and flexibility overseeing the training. When he was hired at this job, he never even stepped foot into her building. He never walked around, met the employees. He never shook her hand. Not only that, but now my friend kind of feels unuseful, and knowing that these people above her are making so much money. And it wasn't the fact that people above her make more money, okay? It was the fact that she was on track to going up this ladder. Okay, everybody has heard about the corporate ladder. So in her mind, she was thinking, I've been a good employee. I've worked my butt off here. I've done everything I can for this company. And now I'm supervisor, and maybe someday I can be in corporate. And I think that's, future looking for a lot of people. But when this happened and these new people came in, she realized that dream was shattered. She realized she no longer even may not have a place there in a matter of years if this keeps continuing, because maybe they'll just take her role away altogether. She looked forward to getting bonuses and raises and making more money, because I think that's what we all seek to achieve. If you have a job and you see the writing on the wall and you're saying to yourself, something's just not right here. Why am I slaving away here and putting all my soul into this company when I'm making like $17 an hour, but the top people don't even have my experience and they're making $50 an hour, $100 an hour, or whatever, they get bonuses. I don't even get bonuses. They get, 2 months off and golf outings, and I'm sitting over here slaving away, sweating to death. There's not even an air conditioner in my office, and I'm getting $17 an hour, barely any benefits. For what? I'm not appreciated. I clearly have no chance of advancement in this company for whatever reason. What I really think is, even though it's scary, I know, I've been there, done it, even though it's scary, if you are at that place in your life and you are thinking to yourself, I gotta get out of here, there's no room for me, there's no more for me, this is it, I'm at the top of my game here and it's maxed out, please freshen up your resume, look at all the work you have done at that job and put it down on paper and rewrite your resume. Because even if it takes 2 years, right, it's out there and you're working on it, and that's one more day to progressing yourself while you're still working for the company, slaving away, making the money to do what you need to do with it. But you're also bettering yourself by putting yourself out there. There are also people on YouTube saying that they're 50 and above, lost their job, fired, replaced by AI. Just this past week, I've seen this, okay? And they don't know what to do. They're stuck. They still have a mortgage payment, or they still have debt they have to pay off, or they haven't finished paying off their car. So that's what I'm saying. Before you're laid off, fired, or your job just collapses from within, be prepared. That's all I can say. People often talk about prep for homesteading, or prep for the end of times, or prep for lack of food. Okay? They say stock up on everything you can stock up on. Stock up on your future vision. Stock up on yourself. That way, if you do lose your job, you're still actively looking. It's easier to keep up than catch up. So if you're out there actively looking and you do get laid off, you do get fired, something happens and you lose your job tomorrow, you're already ahead of the game because you've already started. And now it's just a rolling ball that you continue. A restaurant came to town around, I want to say 2002, 2003, around there. Okay. And a few years ago, without warning, this was a busy place. One day, all the employees locally here, this is like down the street from me, they show up, they get to the front door, big sign, closed, you're out of work. And that was literally what the business did. There was a big article in the paper talking about it. They interviewed the employees and they're in tears. They're shocked. Imagine if that happened to your life. You're just doing your thing, you go in, and all of a sudden, boom, you have nowhere to go today. It really takes it out of you because we get used to routine, function, procedure, and then all of a sudden you go and your day is like ruined. Like, what do I do now? What do I do with myself? And that's what my message is. Start being proactive now. Because if you do that, that will become familiar and routine to you. So if this does happen and you find yourself in a position of being laid off, fired, whatever, you are now able to go back home. Your question won't be, what do I do with myself? I've worked there 17, 20 years. I don't know what to do. Your project will be, get back on the computer, ship out more resumes, get to the post office by 4 o'clock, come home, make dinner, get a good night's sleep. Next day, go down to the library, do some research, or wherever it is. If you have a computer home and no distractions, get to work. Pump out those resumes, pump out those searches for jobs. And it will be familiar and routine. I hope this helps somebody out there. Thanks for watching.